This is the first of 6 sessions we will share this week studying the laws of 3 and 7. Even before we begin, I'd like you to take a look at the group because already here there is a very useful lesson. This session, of course, spoken in English by myself, is being translated into four other languages: Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and Russian. That is because as our school grew, so notice the word growth, that's one of the processes we will be studying. As our school grew, just like a tree, it had to branch into language communities, right? I don't speak Italian. If Italians want to join, they need somebody to translate my message. Same with Russian, same with Spanish, same with Portuguese. So even though I'm the founding trunk of this school, in order to grow, it has to disperse, just like a tree grows first a few branches and they break down into more branches. We could envision the Italian community one day dividing into Milan and Rome and Benevento, a further division if it continued growing. It's quite possible. I want you to envision this image of a growing tree because it will factor in directly into the beginning of this presentation, and specifically the triad of growth. The image I chose for the cover of this event is William Blake's God as Creator. We're seeing just the upper half of it for now, because the creation, the Genesis creation, on which we will rely and to which we will frequently return, is a mythological example of the processes, right? It occurs on 7 days. Over 7 days, we see a hint to the law of 7, but it is much more intricate and intelligent than just that. The law of 3 and 7, therefore, were known to ancient schools, known very well. They were portrayed in ancient myths and imagery, but it is only relatively recently that they came under this name, a little over 100 years ago, with Gurdjieff, and then later Ouspensky and the other students of Gurdjieff. Here it is, Gurdjieff expressing these ideas verbally for the first time, at least the first time I know in history. He says, the first fundamental law of the universe is the law of 3. Every phenomenon is the result of a simultaneous action of 3 forces. The next fundamental law of the universe is the law of 7. All vibrations develop not uniformly, but with periodical accelerations and retardations. We will take a week, almost 6 days, to fully understand what those two very, very big claims mean. Not only understand them intellectually, but also live them as much as that is possible, experience them, and ideally learn the flavor of these different processes that they create. These fundamental laws are part of a whole list, a whole array of laws that govern the universe, and can be seen here on this diagram of the descending aspects of the ray of creation. Gurdjieff portrays the creation as created by an absolute, not that different than the Judeo-Christian Muslim God. Here he is by William Blake, a creator. And really, in this teaching, we don't take this at all religiously. All this means that there is a God is that there is an intention behind the world and the universe. You see what I mean? That it's not just a sporadic accident, a big bang that by chance happened and is now kind of widening. that there is intention, there is an intelligence. That's really all that God need to mean for us. Now, remember I told you I am the founder of the school. I am its mother trunk. And as long as the school was very young, with, attending here with Anselmo and Hannah. And you remember, Hannah and Anselmo, those meetings I would host, these webinars, they were like 7 people, me and 7 of you. As long as it was like that, you had access to my understanding, me being the creator, the initiator, and of course, each of you could only enjoy the limitations of their own understanding. But if you had any question, if you had any doubt, if you had any issue, you could always come to Asaf and ask me, and I would do my best to answer your question. You had direct access to me, just like the first world beneath the absolute still has direct access to the absolute's will. So you see, I'm going to deliberately interweave these two analogies, the growth of the school, the growth of the universe. They're on completely different scales, but they follow exactly the same principles. The way the growth of the universe, or the ray of creation, is described is that it initiates, as I said, with this intelligence, with this absolute, this God, if you like. And on his level, in that world, there is only one law, and it is his will. There are no other laws, not even the law of 3 or law of 7. If you like, it's as if anything he wants has to be. I want a glass of water, poof, a glass of water appears. Yes, like a magician. No denying force, no worrying about, I need to go downstairs and fill the glass. Do we have water? Is it cold? Do I need to add? None. Anything the absolute wants immediately is. That's the idea of there being only one law. And you see this in literature, by the way. Yes, this is not my interpretation, my invention. You see this aspect of God's omnipotence described again and again in literature. Here's an example from the book of Isaiah. For God spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, and it stood firm. Glass of water, poof, glass of water. No problem, no octaves, no intervals, nothing. That's what it means to be in world number 1. But the moment things start branching, the moment my will does not only affect Anselmo and Hannah directly, but now Anselmo is opening a Portuguese community in Sao Paulo. We have a branching. You see what I mean? The moment that happens, the people who join the community in Sao Paulo, or the people listening to Naile's Portuguese interpretation, are now getting me secondhand with all of Naile's best intentions, or David's best intentions, or Pablo, or Anaït. You're not getting it direct from me anymore, because I don't speak Italian and Russian and Portuguese. You are getting Naile's best understanding of what I want to say. Now, in the case of interpretation, it's quite literal, right? Obviously, Naile is staying very, very close to my meaning. But how about when we're not speaking of live interpretation? When a new student comes to Naile and says, what does it mean, Naile? Identification. Can you explain to me now, Naile? He's not asking Asaf anymore. He's asking Asaf's helper. And Naile has to do her best to explain what is identification. It's a step removed, and maybe some personal interpretation enters. Obviously, there has to be. We want there to be. We don't want Naile to parrot me. We want her to speak from her own understanding, or Anselmo or Hannah. And so you see how this unity towards diversity inevitably happens in the process of growth. And you see it happening right here. Because the moment God or the Absolute creates, the moment the Absolute creates world 3, we still have his will. Nihilist still has me. But now we have two new laws that were not there before. We have the law of 3 and we have the law of 7. And of course, you can extrapolate on this analogy as far as you want. Yes, let's say one day we open a few centers in Brazil. Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo we already have, and Brasilia. And let's say Anselmo is in charge of all 3 now. So, and they don't report to me, you see what I mean? They report to Anselmo. So the students joining in Rio, Anselmo, are now 2 steps away from me. You see what I'm saying? And it's inevitable. You cannot grow any operation, anything organically without this dispersal, this drifting away from the will of the founder, or if you like, the will of the absolute. So we have to understand in these 6 days, we will try to understand what do these fundamental laws appearing here, law of 3 and law of 7 mean. But these upper worlds still remain very distant and theoretical to us. So we will primarily be interested in the manifestation of the law of 3 where we live, which is here in world 48. Because once we understand the flavor of these 2 laws in this world, we can actually recognize it anywhere. And that gives us a pretty good advantage to know, to recognize different triads. That will be our aim. That if you leave this week with a sense of flavor of those processes in your pockets, I feel that we will have spent our time very well.